At this time, we will call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee DeWart?
Here.
Trustee Trutchell?
Here. Here. Here.
Trustee Wallschlager?
Here.
Trustee Connor?
Here.
And Trustee Hartland.
Here.
At this time, if you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Trustee Wallschlager.
I pledge allegiance
At this time, anybody that would like to speak in public comments, please step towards the podium. Obviously, the first one there will get to start speaking, then people can kind of get in line if there are any that would like to speak in public comments. Do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to speak in public comments? With that being the case, we will move to our first item on the agenda, which is a consideration of village board minutes for the April 24th, 2023 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the village board minutes of April 24th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the April 24th meeting. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on our agenda is items related to vouchers. We have a consideration of vouchers for a payment in the amount of $640,040.11.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers in the amount of $640,040.11.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the vouchers in the amount of $640,040.11. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have operators bartenders licenses. We have William Woodward, Jenna Morris, Callie Strayer. None of them with opposition from staff to deny.
I'll make a motion to approve the bartender license as stated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those bartenders licenses for those three people. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. We now have amusement device license for HB Cafe LLC, 600 Hartbrook Ave.
Make a motion that we approve the amusement device for Harper Cafe.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the amusement license for Hartbrook Cafe.
Mr. President, if I can just throw one thing in before you take
Absolutely.
your vote on discussion. This is something that Department of Revenue sent out a year ago, and it does go out with their application packet when any establishment registers their devices. As you see, there's a couple video game devices. I don't know what those exactly are for the Hartbrook Cafe. The statute doesn't allow those in non-Class B establishments. It would actually be a felony offense. Hartbrook Cafe is a Class B establishment, so it's not a felony type issue. It does fall under the state statute under a forfeiture, which local police department does not have the authority to enforce, but it may be something the Department of Revenue could look at it at any time if they chose to do so. I don't know what their stance is on enforcing that law. I don't believe it's highly enforced, as I'm sure you've all seen those type of devices, whether amusement only or not, in those type of in a Class B type of establishment.
Can you clarify the establishment is a Class B holding?
They could have 5 or less devices of that nature where it would not constitute an actual crime. Could be considered a forfeiture, but again, jurisdiction would solely lie with Department of Revenue through the state of Wisconsin. We actually, as local law enforcement, do not have the authority. So if that tells you what the legislative intent is for that portion of the law.
It's clear. But so right now, according to what we enforce, it is permissible according to what we have the authority to enforce.
Correct. And again, I don't know what the Department of Revenue does or does not enforce on these. I don't think, again, it's highly enforced with the nature of them in every Class B probably establishment. As long as it doesn't trigger that over 5 amount, then it doesn't really become an issue.
And I agree with you 100%, Chief. I think it's clear what their intent in the verbiage or their writing of the law is, but
Just mostly say that with only having 3, they're obviously within that, but we will probably see more of these as they become renewed in the
Yep.
near future.
okay. We have the attendees here. Can you step to the podium? You have just 2 video machines?
2 video machines and a pull tab machine.
Just wanted to make sure, just wanted to clarify. If you change the number, please just-
I would not be, I have no room.
I'm just saying if you did,
Yeah.
please come to the village. As Chief just stated, you do have up to 5. So, I was just clarifying for
I
you,
want
just so
to
that you know.
apologize
For what?
everybody, because I did
I don't,
not, I didn't
go
know.
ahead.
No, that's all right.
I just wanna apologize.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I just didn't want you feeling like you had to say something.
No, yes, I did. I felt like I did need to say something,
Okay.
but thank you. Good?
Thank you. Of course.
With her getting the license now, isn't it June, when they all renew again? June? Will this have to be? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank
Yep.
you.
If they're in place now, which they are.
Yeah.
So yes, they absolutely would need a renewal in June, yes. We did have the motion in the second, just to clarify, and then that was part of the discussion. But anybody else that has anything for discussion, please feel free to chime in. I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have, sorry, I'm getting back to my agenda here. Consideration of restricted species permit. Do we have anybody here to speak for the, sir, if you could step towards the podium? Or if, however, whoever's here for the restricted species permit, please step towards the podium.
I don't know if there were any questions about it.
I'm not sure if there will be, I just wanted to call
Okay.
you up just in case. You could stand there, that's okay.
Okay.
Does anybody have any,
Are you Ed?
No,
Oh.
Marcos,
Marcos. Is this for the Imperial or Prospect?
Prospect.
Okay, so I have a question on Imperial, but is that who we're taking first?
329 Prospect would be
Oh,
first.
Prospect. I have no questions for Prospect.
329 Prospect is what I'm looking at right now.
I have no questions for this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for 329 Prospect?
Real quick with that, if it would be something approved, the building inspector recommended revisiting it within a year, doing for a 1-year period, just to ensure that 12 chickens, everything's working out, and then revisit in a year.
What's the maximum for the village? I didn't, okay.
We
I
had the
didn't-
honing pigeon, where there were like 30 honing pigeons, if you recall that, where they... There- 12 chickens, I believe a family of 6?
Yeah, so we rent at 329. There's 2 units. We're in the lower unit. It's me, my wife, and my 2 children. Upstairs is a young man and his daughter. And we also have like a community garden in our backyard. 2 people from right next door, there's the apartment complex on the corner. 2 people over there come over to our place we have a nice big 20 by 30 garden now. So we have kind of a community garden going on as well. So.
Is Scott going to be the one to go and check this out at a later time? Or is
Yeah,
that-
so we would just put it on our listing and in a year, reach out to them and just say, hey, bring it back to you and say everything went well. And then you can do a 2-year, a 5-year, whatever you would like. But Scott's concern was just making sure it's not a permanent, just making sure that we don't have any issues.
Can you clarify when you say not permanent?
No, that this wouldn't be a permanent permission of use.
For everyone to have.
No, for this property. that-
Right.
So many in.
Yes, that we would come back in a year and say, yes, 12 chickens was okay.
I am, if
Pose
it's
any
okay, and I'm
problems.
sorry to put you on the spot. I'm gonna ask a question quick. I just wanna ask Chief. I've only seen this come up once before, and not in this municipality. I'll admit this was online, but someone, like, doing a barbecue smoker or smokers in their backyard where it was causing smoke to go into someone else's yard, and obviously, when someone owns a property, they own everything above and below the property. Do we have to be concerned at all that any smell or anything like that could hit a point where someone could be calling, being like, you have to do something, and they're all of a sudden calling the police, or is this something you would not be concerned with at all?
I'm
I know it's a
definitely,
weird question, but I gotta ask.
definitely not an expert when it comes to chickens, but I will say where issues could arise, where I could see police involvement is with noise, potentially, noise and/or chickens on the loose kind of thing, and going in other people's yards, so as long as
Okay.
that's,
Yeah,
You know-
we have a run, or we will have a run attached to the chicken coop, and our backyard is mostly fenced in, but the chickens wouldn't be free ranging around the backyard unless we had somebody out there watching them.
And I just wanted to ask in case this is the most that I've been on to see requested, so I wanted to ask, because
and I think.
all of a
that-
sudden, if someone came for too many, there will be a day where it's like, you know,
Yeah.
if it's not 12, it's 14 or 16 or 20 or 24, where all of a sudden it's like, okay.
Right.
Can't, you know.
And I think that's where Scott's recommendation could come into play, where if we're getting called to the residents and/or Scott's finding discrepancy in the information, that can be brought to the board and
Yeah.
reconsidered within that 1-year time frame.
And I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I just wanted to
Anytime.
ask.
I mean, you could approve it conditionally for a year, and if there's any new. Sure. However you guys want to phrase it.
Are you familiar with any other properties in the village that have as many or more chickens that we've approved prior to my time on the board?
No.
It's a lot of chickens.
Yeah, usually they just have three.
3,
two or
right,
three.
yeah.
And I think Chief would back this up, along with other trustees that have been on the board for a while, our restricted species permit, obviously, chickens are, any of them would be restricted species, but even for dogs and cats and stuff like that, it's typically 2 per property. We have made exceptions for 3 or 4, but this would be the largest amount that this board is facing for a municipal property here in Hartland. And we could take some time to digest this, but it would take a motion to allow them to have these chickens. I just wanted to clarify.
I think as long as we're revisiting this within a year, then it seems to me it's something that we could accommodate. I'd make a motion that we accept the restricted species permit.
I'll second it.
It's been moved in. It's been moved and seconded to allow for a restricted species permit, meaning it has to come back up or at least be reviewed within a year. Can you please note, staff, please note that?
We will.
Chief, you caught that also? You guys can back each other up and put I could put a reminder in, but we'll put a reminder in or something. You guys have a way of taking care of all that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have another item on the agenda.
We have a second one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's here for that second one at 924 South Imperial? I am absolutely apologetic that I missed the second one. Is there anybody here? Okay, all right, I'm not apologetic. They're not here, but I didn't mean to miss it. It's not often we have 2 restricted.
We have several questions on this. Can I make a motion that we, I want to postpone it?
I can answer the first part. You absolutely, as a village trustee, can make a motion to postpone anything you want to.
Well, do I want to, I'm trying to think, table it? No. I'd like to have
If you
somebody
postpone,
here.
if it's, I always postpone. 'cause
I'd like to
it's just
postpone
easier.
this until
And then pick the date and Ryan will tell
our
you.
next
Ryan or
meeting, which is the 22nd, so that the owner, or the Mr. Adams could be here to answer our questions.
Would you like to include in that motion that you also want them to be present, or you will?
Yes,
not
I would like them
vote?
to be present.
Okay, just helping out.
Nope, thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the restricted species permit for Ed Adams at 924 South Imperial Drive for 6 chickens be postponed until May 22nd, and that it would only be taken up without further postponement if the applicant is present. Is that a clear
Yes.
rendition of the motion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. The next item we have on the agenda is consideration of a second reading for ordinance 04242023, an ordinance creating substitute amendment of the Village of Hartland Code of Ordinances regulating residency restrictions for sex offenders.
So this is just the second reading. There will be some changes that come forward for the third reading, just minor stuff, but some items that Chief Misko, myself, and Trace and Attorney Attorney Hummel, and Attorney De La Mora all kind of went through. So Attorney Hummel can kind of walk through some of this ordinance or answer questions if anybody has questions.
What was the changes from the initial packet presentation to now that you sent this one revised?
Whatever, yeah, sure, it was, and I
Why
can
does
just
Chief-
clarify
yeah.
as needed.
Chief, do you have them?
I do.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great.
So in the packet, you should have received an ordinance update, and there should have been even an additional ad as a May 5th draft from Von Briesen, and you'll see some track changes where there's some actual red language that was added and then some crossed out red language that was taken out. So as we went through the first reading, staff met with Attorney De La Mora and kind of walked through some of the things that we have been talking about previous to this ordinance language coming out, and then some things that we just wanted clarification on. So there was really 6 bullet points that I sent to the attorneys. One of which was, there was some language regarding loitering in addition to residency, and my belief was that I think that was something that we may not be able to actually prohibit due to other case law, so that's something that was then taken out, and we stuck with just the residency language. So you'll see that the loitering part of the ordinance on page, it's gonna be off a little bit from the latest version because of the adds and subtractions, but this was on page 4, number 114, of the initial first reading ordinance. And I'm just looking quick to see if I can find it quickly on the second version. It would be line 121, or 122, page 5, where just the word "or loiter," because that was something that the attorneys, in addition to Attorney Worth, were talking through and making sure that we were in our actual capacity of what we could restrict in this matter. The other thing was, and this has been long talked about, I think, with the village board throughout the years, is the original domicile. So if it was a resident of Hartland at the time of the crime, there would be some allowance for that person to remain in the village of Hartland in the home that they resided at the time of the crime. That's a common exception in many of these ordinances. There was another,
Chief, can I jump in on one thing? I just want to make the board aware, because we run into it when we deal with bartenders' licenses and when someone runs into trouble. This isn't on you, and you'll be able to continue. I just want to throw in, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but this board, on that item, will need to decide, is it at the time of crime or time of conviction? I can't say for certain, but I have a feeling that the chief will back me up and say, now, when you get to these cases, this could be a 2.5-year case by the time it's done, and claiming their residency at a certain time can be very different than when they committed the crime as opposed to when they are convicted of the crime. I just wanted to stop so that the board could keep that. You can keep going, Chief. I just wanted to make them aware because I think that's an important thing that we will have to address.
That is referenced in this version of the ordinance that you have. It would be still page 5, basically like line 146, 147. It would be based off where they were domiciled at the time of the offense. Again, to what the president just pointed out. And then there was also some language that's very common in these ordinances for landlords. So what will come into issues from time to time of landlords renting to tenants. And if the ordinance doesn't have any clawback for the landlord, it doesn't help us alleviate that issue. So there's actually a penalty for someone renting to someone that would in one of those restricted zones as well, so that the landlord can also be held responsible for that. There's there was just a rewording, one of the exceptions. This was initially on page 5, line 134, but I believe it's going to be it's going to be page 5, line 152. You'll see a section crossed out where it said the sex offender has served a sentence at a jail. What this exemption typically did in many ordinances around this area was if there was a jail or like a Department of Corrections housing facility of some type, halfway house, anything where that offender would be ordered to report as part of their Department of Corrections and their sentence, that would be an exemption if that location was within one of these child safety zones. Unfortunately, it got worded a little bit to the effect of if they served a sentence. And of course, as you have heard in many of these appeals and in almost every one of these cases, a sex offender has served some type of sentence. So we just didn't want that wording to be confusing, and we just removed that to ensure that there was no confusion as to what that exemption meant. And then there was a portion where this would be on page 6. It starts off with the crossed out section in line 180, where there was going to be an additional layer of I'll call an appeal hearing, where initially the chief of police would hear the appellant out and make a ruling. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work the greatest in the sense that I'm the one investigating said violation. It becomes difficult to then rule on the same thing, because obviously I'll be kind of acting as the prosecutor and judge in that case, and that gets difficult to do because I'm kind of explaining to myself, and then I got to hear myself and then say I agree with myself. So that gets a little confusing a little bit. So we just wanted to bring it back to basically the system we had in place, remove the extra layer of the process, and just the police department would still do the investigation and then provide that information to the village board if an appeal were to happen. And then you guys would have all the information to make that decision, as you have had in under the moratorium. And then the last part, I just wanted to clear up, and Rupert Milky was able to do this. You all have received the map, the bubble map that shows like a visual effect of what that looks like for the village of Hartland at the 750 feet child safety restriction area. What I wanted is just like a list, because sometimes those bubbles overlap. It's hard to tell what's in, what's out. So Rupert and Milky actually made us a list of some of those locations, just so we had those as in addition to the map, so people can clearly see it's these properties and this is what it visually looks like.
I believe we're in the most recent, we were also looking for an update that just said, should a business start up that would meet this qualification, that this map isn't like the gold standard, that we can't update it every time something happens, but so that it kind of gives an idea.
And I know this was a point of discussion, but I just bring it, this was in the first reading in addition to now the second reading version. But the locations that they identify, they're on page 4, starting on line number 91. Those are public schools as defined by state statute, private schools as defined by state statute, And then any public park, parkway, parkland, park facility. This does exclude pathways, because as you can imagine, all our pathways would basically exclude the entire village of Hartland very quickly with our Ice Age Trail and other pathways. But the parks themselves would be part of that. General language is public swimming pool, public library would be part of that, and then public playground would be part of that. Those are the identified child safety zones. And then that was the major, really, all of which I had that really got changed around, other than maybe some just language, making it read a little better.
Can I ask you, this is just for the residency, this doesn't say that a sex offender can still go into a park where there's children and sit down and have a picnic, right?
So, yeah, that was our interpretation, is we are able to restrict residency. We're not able to restrict someone's ability to move freely through a public area. And that is how the moratorium was worded as well. We restricted residency and residency only. The vast majority, I would say, of sex offender ordinances do the same, where it's the residency piece, because that is something that we can and have the ability to restrict. So if you work in Hartland, if you recreate in Hartland, those aren't restricted areas. They're child safety zones, but if you come to the beer garden, that's not a restricted zone for them to go. And that's just based off some legal interpretation of current case law.
It's actually been deemed to be unconstitutional to do anything besides residency, so that's why we have to limit it to that.
Chief, real quick, this was brought up by Trustee Trutchell. The listing that came, correct?
Yes.
We'll have to add Nixon Park.
So I did send back to them. We on the parkways, I just confirm it with what we have listed on our website, just so we're kind of talking off the same sheet of music. They did fail to add Nixon Park and the Bark River Greenway, that is identified as a park as well. I believe it's incorporated in the bubbles. Nixon Park is definitely, I mean, that you can't. The Bark River Greenways amongst other things, so it's hard to, again, tell what's in the bubble, what the center of that bubble is or isn't. So I haven't heard back from Ryan as of yet, but I know I sent both of those to him for clarification to add a list. The list is not part of the ordinance. This is just something that will get referred to. The ordinance says we have to have this visual for people to understand where they can and cannot live in the village of Hartland. This just, to me, helps us understand what is some of these bubbles. There's a lot of things going on, and I just want to know, one, did they do it right? And then two, what are those center of those bubbles based off of? And then the only other thing that was talked about was that Sunny Slope Park, which I think was a park at one point, but we don't also clearly identify on our website as a park, so we leave it up to the board, I guess, to identify is that a park or not a park.
It's a park. I mean, it is.
Done. Should be a decision.
Well, at one time it was a park, but we've taken everything out of there
Well,
now.
there's
It's
still a
just
bench there,
it's
and
just
we
a
have
pump.
some
Well, it's a
landscaping.
pump.
Okay, we'll talk.
The one
about
that's
that
right by
sometime.
Walgreens.
Yeah.
There's landscaping, we still have a bench there. We're gonna plant some
We can-
daylilies.
So
Take
that
that to the
is,
park board.
that is part of the map right now. Sunny Slope Park is part of the map.
How about, would daycare centers be under private schools then?
Not defined by state statute.
Not, okay.
So daycare centers right now are not. The other thing that's not are areas that children could commonly go to and think,
Bus stops.
well, bus stops are tough because, but think facilities, the gymnastics place, the soccer place, the wrestling club, the arcade, which isn't a pretty much restricted area anyhow because you're within Hartbrook Park, and then if Sunny Slope Park and all that kind of fall in. So those areas are not part of it. These are just public right now, but that is something that I think you can discuss, and if that's something you want to add, that's what gets tricky because those come and go, and then you got to stay up with those as they come and go. And typically those are supervised as well, fairly well, at a more controlled manner.
Chief, I want to ask a question in case it ever comes up, and I don't think it would come up in the recent or in the near future, but it could be down the line. Because there's a lot of stuff that comes up that you would never think would come up. Your opinion and your understanding, and our attorney could answer this along with you, but if a property is within the bubble, but not in its entirety, does a property have to be in its entirety in the bubble, or is it like a hockey goal? If it crosses the plane, that makes it part of the restricted property where a registered sex offender could not move to.
We actually asked that question to Attorney De La Mora, and his answer to us was, if it breaks into the property would fall within the zone.
Restriction?
Attorney Hummel has a different opinion.
As long as it touches it barely over, it's within the bubble.
Okay, all right.
So
If it
you-
crosses that
if
property line.
Those of you on the board looking at the map, you'll see like that one property.
All of these are all restricted. Okay, I thought it was a good question. It's something that could come up, especially since there's so many properties that are where you have, 1/20th or 1/8 or a quarter or a half of the property that's in. So I
Yeah,
just
you'll
wanted
see
to-
those like on Willow Drive.
That would have been
for
my
example.
opinion, but
Some of
I-
the properties in, some aren't. If it touches the property line, we were taking the position it's within the child safety zone.
And that's what a majority of the ordinances do, is take the boundary lines from everything. If it touches the boundary line at all, we just use that as the boundary.
And, well, I'll wait till, we don't necessarily need, get a motion on this, so I'm gonna speak anyway, but obviously this isn't pressuring anybody on the board, because I want everybody to ask anything they want to or not do something if they don't think it's appropriate, but I have a feeling there's strong support for continuing on this path, with this, ordinance. But the, board have done a really good thing with the process that we've taken in getting here, and I'm saying this now because the next time is probably gonna be the third reading and it's gonna go through, but I do commend not only this board and all the members on it, but the people that have served on here previously. What Hartland's done to get here is really miraculous, and I really mean that. To be the only municipality in the entire United States to have a moratorium on registered sex offenders because we became a dumping ground for the Department of Corrections that was dumping them there, even with their agreement. And to watch our numbers go down by 43 or 47, depending on how you look at it, % of registered sex offenders per capita living in the village of Hartland, I think is a monumental, it's a monumental action that was through the course of years that probably 20 years from now, people won't realize there isn't some big thing that says, hey, this went on here. But I do believe we're moving in the right direction because that moratorium was to get the numbers down. And I do believe that this ordinance will maintain in a more legal, or I still think the moratorium is legal, but in a more legal manner now that our numbers have been brought down of how things should be. Because obviously, being a municipal of our size, we should have some. There's people that are offenders that came from Hartland, and I do agree with original domicile, I really do. We can't expect other people not to take their own offenders if we won't take our own. But more than anything, I just want to commend not only this board, but staff, chief, all the people on your team that have spent time going out, and I really mean this, every single department, every single person working for this community on staff, and every single person that served on these boards for these last 5+ years. Something bigger is happening here than people even realize, but we did it. We knocked it down by almost 50%. From what it was 5 years ago, there's 50%, almost 50% less registered sex offenders living in the village of Hartland per capita. Anybody have anything else? Well, then we will consider the second reading concluded. The next item on the agenda is the discussion and consideration of an application for a special events permit for Hartland Public Library. Summer reading program kickoff on June 10th, 2023. Sir.
Yes, it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're renting out part of Nixon Park for our summer reading program kickoff. It's going to consist of an inflatable bouncy house for kids. We're also going to have yard games such as like a giant Connect 4 and cornhole and mega dice. They're going to be coming from our new collection that we just started at the library, which is called the Library of Things. So it's also a way to market that. We're also going to have a table where you can sign up for summer reading, along with some crafts and like kind of word search pages and stuff like that. And then Pat Enter is going to open the beer garden early for us, so he'll be providing food and drinks the entire duration of the event. And we plan on setting up probably around 9 a.m. because we will have to actually inflate the obstacle course, and then we'll take it down as soon as possible after.
And then he will open though, so people can go and order food, like if they're here around the noon hour?
Yes,
they can?
so originally we were going to have Kiwanis do like hot dogs and maybe like bagged chips, something like that, but Dave put me in touch with Pat, which I appreciate from Dave. He said he has no issue opening at 11 a.m., so we're going to have the whole time will be covered.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the special events permit for Hartland Public Library for the event on June 10th.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the Hartland Public Library Summer Reading Program kickoff event on June 10th, 2023. No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much for all you guys working on that. Thank you. Next item we have is discussion and consideration of an application for a special events permit for National Night Out on August 3rd, 2023.
Yep. So this is an event that we have done in the past, going to look similar. Flight for Life will be landing in the baseball field in Nixon Park. We are putting together this community event to support not only the police, but also fire and DPW, and of course would welcome the village board to also be present for this event. We will have vendors lining the park and also some food opportunities. This is in line with one of the evenings of our Thursday night concert series, so there'll be music and it should be a great event for the community.
Just want to remind you that we shouldn't have a baseball game that night.
Yeah. That's true.
We've been doing National Night Out for a long time, so I think it's awesome that we're doing it again.
Yeah, it's a great event. I'll make a motion that we approve the application for the special events permit for the National Night Out on August 3rd.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the special events permit for the National Night Out on August 3rd. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried. You'll all have to excuse me. I'm going to have to take a brief recess for a moment, and then we will resume in just a few minutes.
Correct.
We have discussion and consideration of an application for a special events permit for Tundraland on deck on June 24th, 2023.
We have Brittany here to present.
Do you want me to tell you about the event?
Sure, we'd
Awesome.
love to hear it.
So
Yes.
I'm the showroom events manager for Tundraland Home Improvements. We're located in Waukesha, kind of right over by Raised Grain, if you're familiar with the brewery. We've been around since 2009, but we've been in the Waukesha location. It'll be 2 years in June. And we're just really trying to engage with the community, let people know who we are. The community initiatives are super focused. We do something called Bass for the Braves every Veterans Day, where we go install free bathrooms for veterans, just as a thank you for everything they've sacrificed for their country. And so we kind of just wanted to do a fun event. We typically do these events actually at our showroom location in Waukesha, but we wanted to try something new and thought maybe if we took it to a park like Nixon Park, we'd engage with the community a little bit better. So these events are completely free for the community. We provide a free food truck. We're going to have a grilled cheese food truck, an ice cream food truck. We have our own bounce house we're going to blow up. I'd call the Diggers Hotline, make sure we're good to do that. And then also have face painting. And again, it's a completely free event for the community. There'll be no sales happening. Our goal will be to make appointments to eventually go into a customer's home, but no sales will be happening on site. It's just really a way to engage with the community. It's happening from 11 to 2 on Saturday, June 24th.
The park board was very excited that somebody outside of Hartland wanted to use Nixon Park, so we're really excited about that.
You also have to tell them how you picked this place. You said you were strolling around and
No,
fell
I
in
did a
love
lot
with
of
it.
I did a lot of research. I was looking at Waukesha, I was looking at Brookfield, I was looking at Pewaukee, and then I just fell in love with Nixon Park and the splash pad and the community. I recently just moved to Oconomowoc and I love Lake Country, so just really trying to engage with this community a little bit better. And there's a lot of lakes around here, and we do decks, and people that live on lakes need decks.
We don't have a lake, but we do have a splash pad.
You know, you could put a deck there.
For a clarifying question, and you explained it properly, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
You are catering the event. There's no money exchange out the window.
We've already
of the
paid.
food truck, so it's a
We
catered.
right.
event.
We even paid for the food truck fees for the
No,
food
I
trucks.
believe you. I was
Yeah,
just clarifying.
Yeah.
Some
and
people really get.
Yeah, and I already gave Sarah
You
all
say
the.
food truck, and it's all of a sudden.
No, we're doing it for like 100 people. We signed
Okay.
contracts for
No,
100 people.
that's awesome.
So,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and if we end up like having a super successful event, we could go over and then pay the difference, which
Sure,
we're ready to
sure.
do if need be. And then we provided Sarah all the insurance of the food trucks and their certifications and everything of that sorts as well.
Well, I think it's awesome that you chose Hartland, and your description of how you ended up deciding Hartland, I think is how a lot of us ended up living in this area.
Really?
is
That's
by
awesome.
just stumbling around and trying to find a place, and all of a sudden we're like, well, now I'm just in love. And,
Yeah.
And the
No.
marriage is made. So, no, I think that's great. It's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, this is super awesome. It's my first official board meeting, and it's really interesting and awesome what all of you guys do.
Quite very
Kudos
impressive.
to everyone in the service, or I mean, in the safety industry, police, firefighters, everyone, and everything that everyone does. Thank you for your service.
I think it's great. I'll make a motion to approve special use permit for Tunderland on the deck on June 24th, 2023.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the special events permit for the Tundraland event.
My only request is hopefully I'll see you all there.
Thank
Yeah,
you very
of
much.
course.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried.
Thank you.
Now we have the special events permit for the farmer's market, June 25th through October 29th. This is an event that's been running for a very long time. Well, when I say very long, Tim, do you know? It's been a good 8 years, hasn't it?
Oh,
Or
it's
is
been-
it 6?
No, it's been longer than that. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes you drive by and you didn't think there was a farmer's market there. There was like maybe 2 vendors, but it's.
In the last few years, there's
it's
been
growing.
quite a few there.
Yeah, it's growing and growing. In fact, this is probably the biggest roster that we've had so far, right, Sarah?
I will tap on Greg. Is he here? Oh, wow.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I mean, I think it's okay, unless someone has an issue, I'm totally good with it. This farmer's market's been running for a while. I enjoy going and getting fresh produce and other items there, so. But I'm not the only one in the village, so we'll leave it up to the board to
Yeah.
speak their minds. Did the location change on this one?
They currently have it set across the street in the municipal lot from the grist mill.
That's what I thought. Yep, so same location.
Yeah,
They
it
had
has-
talked last year about switching it over to here
Yeah.
if it got too big, but.
It had been
so they're-
proposed that they
I
consider.
think it's cool over there, but that's, it works.
Yeah.
It works.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application for the special events permit for the Hartland Farmers Market, June 25th through October 29th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the farmer's market June 25th through October 29th at the same location on Pauling over there. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried.
Great.
Now we have the budget calendar.
Number 9.
I'm sorry. Consideration of, this is fun. Consideration of authorizing staff to complete and submit a simplified rate case water utility rate increase on behalf of the Hartland Water Utility.
All right, so annually I get to review this to see if we are eligible. There's a formula that you do through the Public Service Commission. Back in 2016, we did a full rate case. And at that point, it originally recommended like a 58% increase. We ended up doing a 30% increase. Again, in 2020, we were eligible for, I believe it was a 3% rate increase. And now this year, we are eligible for an 8% rate increase. So what that means is when they run our numbers, our net income is not hitting the goals set by the original rate case study. So without doing that, you will look at, when we need a full rate case, having a much larger full rate case requested. So an 8% is high. I'll let Mr. Faulkner tell you about some of the fun upcoming expenses that we will have.
So through the DNR, we had to do a lead copper service inspection through every resident. We have to have that completed by October of '24. That's also regulated by the EPA is requiring us to do that. But the DNR already came back to the Village of Hartland because we have 12 lead services throughout the municipality, and then we have hundreds of houses that were built in the 70s that have lead solder. So they already notified us that coming in 2024 that the Village of Hartland will be responsible for injecting phosphate, a polyphosphate. It's like a coating that it's like a sugar water that coats the inside of the pipe so it doesn't let the lead bleed off of the solder and the lead surfaces. So that expense coming to the budget meetings this summer will be $75,000 in 2024. And then $51,000 every year for chemicals from there on. So that's part of the increase that they'll have to cut.
Iterate that, that's coming from, not from Village of Hartland deciding that, but from higher level
From the
state
DNR.
agencies.
It's coming
Yes.
down from the DNR who regulates our water.
You said it was 75,000 in '24, and then how much after that?
It'd be $51,000 a year. So the extra $24,000 is for pumps, scales, tanks, and metering equipment. Then after that, you have to pay for the chemicals every year, which is $51,000.
And again, I just bring this forward, so the whole point of the full rate case is that every year you get to look and see how you're doing. We are now eligible for that, for this simplified rate increase. You don't have to approve it, it's just when we need money for things, we would have to go out and borrow or do alternatives to get that.
I have a question for you. So let's say we don't approve this for you to do the study, and then we come and get it whenever it comes again, and then we approve it. How much more of an increase would you think that would be?
So so with the simplified rate increase, it's a max, and you get 8% or nothing. We can't say you get what you get. When we go out and do a full rate case study, again, you get what you get, but the number that we originally got was very high, so the board wasn't comfortable, so we tweaked it down. But again, it's paying for the infrastructure. Whenever we put in any piping, any projects, you're looking at several $100,000 for any. I know you don't like this topic. It's very expensive, so again, if we don't do the simplified rate increase, we'll have an opportunity again next year. And if it's 4%, the PSC tells you what percent. The more you keep doing it, even, so there's municipalities out there that have received 100 to 300% rate increases. City of Waukesha, I know they tripled theirs, but theirs is different because of their project. But, you know, utility costs are increasing. Talk to the DNR officials because that's the one doing all the chemical requirements.
So another big project coming down for the water utility is we have to reline or replace the water main from Cardinal all the way over to Aurora, which is in Walnut Ridge. We are gonna use ARPA funds on that, but if we didn't, that would have cost the village $1.5 million just to replace that water main. But we're getting the marsh.
Oh, okay. A big metal pipe running through a marsh. Just wanted to make sure we clarify that. But that wasn't this board that you signed.
What does the future hold for fluoride, and what's the cost associated with that?
So we spend approximately $10,000 a year on fluoride. There's obviously the dental industry loves the fluoride. There is a cautious part of me that doesn't like it, the fluoride, because fluoride is an acid, and if you go fluoride, it actually eats the chrome off of the stainless off of steel handles. We change our outlets every couple of years because it's so aggressive. It'll etch the windows. It's an acid.
Do you have the authority to stop doing that?
The authority would be on the village board to do that, and
Not on the agenda.
it's not on the agenda, but we would have to do a study on that.
No, it's not on the agenda. No motion can be made.
More of a curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Dave.
We can talk more if
I have
you'd
a
like
feeling
to.
that one will come up again.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I think we talked about this a while ago, and I asked the question, how many municipalities in Wisconsin do not have fluoride?
It's about 60% of municipalities that do inject, so it's 40% that do not.
Then the coating that you talked about that would need to be applied every year, would the fluoride be would the coating be negatively affected by the fluoride?
Not that I'm aware of. I would have to do some investigation on that. The reason why the fluoride's so aggressive in the well houses is because it's at a pure state. It's not mixed with the water as of yet, so it gets injected like it's like a Venturi. We'll pump 1,000 gallons a minute, and what it does is it acts like a Venturi, and it'll suck the fluoride in and mixes it while it goes into the system.
You'll pump 1,000 gallons of water a minute.
A minute,
and
correct.
it sucks. I just didn't want people thinking that.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fluoride.
Our water is tested all
Are you
the
done?
time.
we have to test
Yes.
fluoride, chlorine. We have to test them all daily.
Dave, remind me why we put fluoride in our water anyway? I mean, we get fluoride treatments at the
For your
dentist.
pearly whites,
But you get fluoride treatments at the dentist.
you do
You
get
can.
fluoride treatments. And
So-
actually, there's fluoride in all your mouthwashes, there's toothpaste.
So again, why are we,
That was voted on years ago, and we just never brought it back to see what the board's decision was.
Back to the water rate increase.
I can answer the water rate increase. I've only been doing this 6 years, but it was my first or second year, all of a sudden the water rates had to go up 30% because we didn't have a simplified rate increase. So there were, in the past, when we talk about not doing it, boards did that. They would hold it off, keep pushing it off, but then instead of it being like, I don't even know how, I'm trying to think of an analogy, but instead of it being like I accidentally walked into a tree, it's like I just got hit by a dump truck. I mean, that's really how it was. Like you had nothing, but then bam, 30 or 40 or 50 or 60% of a water rate increase. Where this way we're keeping up the infrastructure, so we hold a certain amount of money in an account, but when things come up, you don't run into a 30 or 40 or 50% rate increase. Am I somewhat correct on that?
You are correct.
You still could be eligible for that. Depends on what inflation does. And the cost of our supplies, the cost of pipes, the cost of everything is very expensive. So we're trying to avoid Yeah, a 30%, a 50%, a 70%. Like I said, there's municipalities out there that had 100 to 300% rate increases. We're no different than We Energies. It's a public utility. So they treat it as a for-profit that we need net income. And the reason we need that is the ARPA funds are 850,000 of the 1.5 million. We have to find the 700,000 somewhere else within the sewer utility or water utility. So.
I'll make a motion that we authorize staff to complete and submit a simplified rate case water utility rate increase on behalf of the Hartland Water and Utility.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the water utility rate increase on behalf of the Hartland Water Utility. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion is carried. Now we have consideration of the 2024 budget. Sorry, I just lost my agenda.
Oh, I kicked it right here, budget.
Presentation, or I'm sorry, consideration of the 2024 budget preparation schedule. Again, we do this just so that everybody knows in the public and people on the board know when we're going to have our different meetings, because we do have a few of them when it comes to budget.
And this was brought to the last meeting. You guys wanted some time to review these dates. These are similar dates to previous years. This is a capital improvement year, so in July we will have, most of that is through Public Works, is our paving, unless we have a facilities needs analysis discussion at that point. But this is just a schedule we've always had, lines up very well. As I put out today, we have doing a full reevaluation of the village, so that will play into some of the timing of the budget, but I believe all the dates are correct, if one's not. But the two key ones for you guys are September 13th and 14th, when we have the budget workshops.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget calendar for 24 budget.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the budget calendar for the village. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That motion is carried.
Can you hold off on the next one? Okay.
Yeah. We're going to wait just a second before we get to the next item. Just a second, Chief.
I want to see, did you do a PowerPoint?
You and I together.
Do you have one day that's better than the other?
I didn't even look in for that.
Well, and that's what, I didn't want people like, so now it's right here.
I might end up going to those. I got some more Skittles left up here, so I'm running down. Thank you. Werther's, I like Werther's. Nope, Werther's is good. Cigarettes? An ashtray. I got the cigarette tray. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Anybody want chocolate? Chocolate? You want me to hit them?
Okay, you ready? Go ahead. We're gonna.
Hey, did you read it? Did you read it?
I will.
I'm not gonna have it.
Now we have preparation of the Hartland Fire Department Annual Report. Chief, thank you for taking that moment to make sure that we had everything in order. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Floor is
All right,
yours.
good evening. The HFD annual report will be a tag team event tonight. So it'll be myself, Division Chief Sharp, and Deputy Chief Walker. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the next 2 hours. Just kidding, come on.
Where's the popcorn?
Right. We cannot begin the report without talking about the call. So Mansfield Court, some facts about this call. There were 4 homicides and 2 suicides, a total of 6 deceased persons at this residence. HFD had a total of 18 responders, including 3 of our full-time all 3 of our full-time personnel respond to this call. Every HFD chief was there, every HFD officer except for 2. Within 16 minutes of the call, we had 18 personnel inside the building searching for victims. That was HFD, Lake Country Fire, Merton Community, and Lisbon Fire Department. So, I would be remiss also if I did not recognize the two Hartland Police Department officers, Officer Gergel and Lieutenant Zaboniak, who were, when I came around the back side of the building to do my 360, they were rescuing people off the balconies. They had found a ladder, they were using their squad car, whatever they could to get them off of there. So, again, great working relationship with the PD, with the DPW, everybody, so. The first 4 victims were removed within the first 30 minutes of the time of this call. Some of the victims had suspicious injuries, and then a weapon was discovered. At that point, all rescue operations were halted and the remaining fire was extinguished. All personnel that were inside the building or around that area were decommissioned and returned to HFD to give written reports of what was witnessed inside. The scene was then secured and turned over to HPD and the State Fire Marshal. Other departments that were with us, we had 11 chief officers total, 11 fire engines, 3 ladder trucks, 8 ambulance, and the farthest one came from West Dallas. Multiple police agencies were there, ATF and the Department of Criminal Investigation was also there, the State Fire Marshal, so. We had an enormous amount of support staff, Hartland DPW, the administrative staff, from the Village Hall, area chaplains, Red Cross, Salvation Army, canteen, chaplains, and a Waukesha Metro Transit bus. So this was the worst loss of life in our 129-year history. Largest fire response since 2019, the Hartland Inn fire. Most of my full-time staff needed time off to recover with few options to replace them. We still have ongoing debriefing and professional assistance for all of the members that were involved. It was a challenge to remain operational with a large percentage of our staff that was impacted by this call. Also, the personnel that came from home, so it was a challenge for that staff to return to their regular jobs that same day and then for the next few days afterwards. The support we received from other fire agencies around this area all the way into Tosa, we had chiefs calling me on a daily basis asking if we needed anybody to come out and sit in our station because they had people on their off days that were going to come out and help us out. So we did not need any of those, thankfully, but it was great to have all of them stepping up and supporting us for this. Again, the administration, the board members, and citizens, just the showing of support for this after this was phenomenal. We had so much food in that firehouse for weeks afterwards. We had other fire departments, Tishigan Fire Department, my niece and nephew are on. They brought up food on a Friday night. I think that lasted us for a week. It was just amazing, so. We can move on to the next slides after that Mansfield fire. So historic call volume. This slide shows our ever-growing call volume. This is a 10-year look back. From 2012, we ran 762 calls for service. In 2017, we ran 854 calls for service. And last year was the most ever at 1,137 calls. HFD is one of the busiest single-station departments in the county. We do not do interfacility transports. All of our calls come from 911 calls only. We are on pace for another 1,100 calls for service in ʼ23. We have 350 calls at this time in the first quarter. So, all with 3 full-time personnel that work 24 shifts on, or 24 hours on and 48 hours off. So, I will turn this over to DC Sharp.
Good evening.
I apologize if I have to run out since I'm on shift right now, but I'm just going to go over a couple of the activities and stuff that we have going on at the fire department over the last year. So one of the biggest ones that we've had was continuing education. So all of our members are continually going through classes to upgrade their certification, to continue with their education where they're at with the fire side and the EMS side. He's going to be pulling it up here in just a second, but we have quite a list of people that have went through new certifications over the last year. All the members in there from all the way from firefighter 1 to EMT basic up to paramedic as well. Along with, we had some officer promotions that happened at the department. So Deputy Chief Walker was pronounced into being the deputy chief for our department. We also have Randy Gilmore, who is our fire division chief. Captain Orgus, who takes care of the fire side as well, and then Lieutenant Jacob Notch, that is one of our fire lieutenants. Obviously, we've had a couple awards that were given last year as well. Our Eric Ruse was our firefighter of the year. We had an EMT of the year, which was Teresa Woodward, an MPO of the year, which was Jim Wren, and then we got the Medal of Valor, which was from Jacob Notch. So, to continue on to the next setting, we also have our Explorers. So the Explorers is a high school group of kids that come in there. They range from, I think, honestly, 8th grade all the way up to the senior year, where we have students that come in and they actually assist or work to see how the fire service is. So we have a group of members that take our Explorers out. They do real life fire trainings with them. They go and do climbing through obstacle courses, which we would have to do for a confidence course to make sure that we're able to squeeze tight through tight spaces, cut through wires, things like that. And then also take them to the realistic side of taking down walls, putting out fires inside of a room, things that want to see if they want to drive to be a firefighter later on. It's a nice program because sometimes people go into these classes and they don't realize that they want to be, or they realize the amount of work that it takes to be a firefighter or an EMT. So that kind of gears them up to see if this is a career path they want to choose later on. The next one is going to be on the software and equipment that we've gotten over the last year. So our MDCs. So last year we had put in mobile dispatch centers in all of our apparatus, our front lines, and our second outs. What's nice about this system is it allows us to see quicker dispatch information regarding on an incident that we have. It reduces all of our talking on the radio. That allows dispatch to be more open for other agencies that need it, so we can actually go en route with them, go en route to the hospital with it, mark ourselves arrived at the hospital. We could even send direct messages to dispatch if we wanted to through it. But it's nice because it has GPS capabilities and it helps us narrow down the location of the call a lot quicker. The next one is going to be PS Tracks. So we implemented this last year. It was one of the projects that I took on. I wanted to get a asset management system that was put in place so we could track things a lot better and all in one platform. So PS Tracks, it does all of our weekly rig checks. So we go through it. We can actually go through and do our checks on there from our cell phone, from a computer, from a tablet. We do all of our narcotic control counts on there every day. So we go in there, we check our counts, we make sure it's logged, and it's easier for us to go back and look for any errors that occur. We can also monitor all of our brand new SCBA equipment that we have, all of our brand new gear that we have, and we can actually keep track of if anything is damaged. We can put a report in on it, and it shows up in the system later if we need to track something that might have gone bad. The next item that we have is going to be our SCBAs. So that was one of our big purchase items last year. So our SCBAs were pretty much end of life or at an end of life state. We had the packs for quite a few years, and the bottles were all going out of compliance because of their they call it static testing that they have to be done. They can only be done up to 3 times before they go out of service. So we transitioned to the G1, which was the newer, latest, and greatest MSA, which is nice because they're a little bit lighter packs, so they're more agile for us to move around in structure fires. They have capabilities for software where we can actually track firefighters if we ever go to that later on in life. And they also have a little bit longer life with the breathing air, so we can actually control our breathing and see if we have 60 minutes or if we have 20 minutes left of breathing that goes. The next item is going to be some PR events that we had. So as far as PR goes, that's typically any of the public relations events that we go to. So one of them being National Night Out. We obviously get a couple crews together to take our apparatus down there and let the kids go through the equipment. It's always a great time, and the minute kids see fire trucks, they're all running for us. So, but we get kids out to that. We had our pancake breakfast where we have the community come out and they provide donations to us for our Hartland Firefighters Association. We usually get Flight for Life. I think last year Flight for Life actually got stuck there because they had something wrong with their helicopter, so it ended up sitting in the field. So But otherwise, that was a great turnout as well. We do the stuff the truck or fill the boot, which is just more of a drive-by donation. So people will drive by to donate food for the food pantry, along with donations that go for those people that might be in need during that time of year. And then lastly, the holiday train. Always a big event, a very cold event, but it's fun to go out there. We had our fire trucks out there. One of our firefighters made a snowman, put the helmet on it for the kids when they were walking by, which was quite fun. But it's always a good event. We ended up using a lot of lighting from our trucks to help light the roadway as well. So. Some of our RPAs. So RPAs is more on the billing side of things, and we think Julie here is a godsend for when she has to go through all the numbers and all the reports that she has to go through each year. So with our billing at the fire department, we are right now at an 88% in received payments in phase 1 billing, which is really high. So when it comes to 81%, that is showing us that we have lesser amount of charge that is being produced for our billing. So that's, if you can remind me, it's billing from direct to the insurance company and then return to us. And then from there, if anything doesn't go through, and that's our soft collection, goes into phase 2 collections, which is then usually relating to it hasn't made it to the insurance company, so someone receives a bill directly, then goes to the insurance company because, hey, they didn't have my insurance info, so it goes to that phase 2 billing. Phase 2 billing has an increase in their percentage where they charge us. And we only have, I think it was 4% of phase 1 bill or phase 2 billing. And then lastly goes into our third phase, which is 9%, which is usually hard collections. So we pay up to 28% then for billing charges for that. So having an 88% return rate is really high, and it's almost up there with the top dogs with most interfacility transport companies and Medicare and things like that. So thanks to Julie, she narrows down every incident that we go on, make sure everything is put in there and keyed in there correctly so we get that return where we're at. The next one going to be is our 2% dues. So 2% dues are collected every year based off of all the events that we have. So when it comes to 2% dues, let me just pull up here. The criteria that is met for it is going to be the organization of continuing education or continuous fire protection in the village of Hartland and having a designated chief. Is able to ensure the response of at least 4 firefighters, none of whom are the chief, to an alarm for fire at a building. Provide a training program that prescribes the DSPS. Keeps records, or keeps all the records that we need for our fires. So we use all of our NIFRS programs that we have to go in and create. And then satisfy fire inspections every year. So currently in the village, we do roughly, last year we were at a 610 fire inspections that we have to do. And that's all businesses or multifamily buildings, things like that, that we have to go and inspect. Keep documentation on, follow up on it later on to make sure they're in compliance with the state. On top of that, we also do lots of fire prevention with kids in the school. So we have a lot of schools in our community. Last year we had 755 students that we taught fire prevention to. And that's 36 classes all in 1 month. And usually less than a month, I think. We get it done in about 2 to 3 weeks. And Julie coordinates with the schools to have the students come to the fire department, or we go to the school itself with the fire truck and teach fire prevention every year. Typically, we do it from grade levels 4K up to 2nd grade. And then lastly, let's see here. With the 2% dues, so last year we, as the Village of Hartland, we received $59,321 with our 2% dues, with having all of our data that we submit into the state. We also receive a portion from the town of Merton of $9,961, so we totaled out almost $70,000 in revenue from 2% dues. And that's just from everything from escorts to explorers trainings to driver trainings to all of our drills that we hold, all of our fire inspections, all of our data that we keep at the department. And couldn't do it without Julie to help us out and make sure that stuff stays in line. So, but I believe that was it on mine. I think I had one more section there. Last thing is on trainings. So a couple notable trainings that we did last year. So we did an extrication. You've probably all seen the bus sitting in our fire department department parking lot. So we've been utilizing the bus for trying to do realistic trainings that we might run into in the field. One we did last year was a car that rear-ended the bus, was under it. We had to stabilize the bus and stabilize the car while getting victims out of it, which were dummies, of course. But we set that up over in the DPW parking lot and conducted that training. We have a few other idea trainings that we're going to use for the bus as well. And then also we had some roof ventilating that we did, search and rescue operations on that was on the burn house, correct? The Vilter property. So we had a lot of trainings that we did in that house before we did the final burn down as well. So it takes a lot for us to get through all these trainings, but it's all of our members enjoy it, and it's a great time. So I think that is it on my end. So I'll turn this over to Deputy Chief Walker here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You kind of jumped around, so I gotta go.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Assuming this works. Hey, still awake? I got the graveyard shift, huh? How are we doing so far? We all right? Pacing out okay? Are we gonna beat the 20-minute mark that Chief left us? I don't know, it's gonna be close. All right. So, I don't know. How am I doing? Julie's gonna pull it out. So, I got the fun part. I get to pull at the end until he finishes for us and talk about the challenges that we face. One thing I'll say before I get to this is we missed and kind of glossed over, didn't even hit the bullets on all the major incidents we responded to. Talked about all the other trainings. They're in the presentation and the link that you guys were sent. So go pull those. There are other major incidents, big car accidents in Hartland, and major fires both in Hartland and in neighboring communities. So those are all listed with big pictures and so on, but didn't really talk about it here, but those are in the link that you guys were all sent as well too. So, all right, so with the things that Chief talked about come big challenges as well too. So this slide that you guys are looking at, I don't stand still very well. I don't.
Everybody can hear me?
That's handheld.
I say, all right, I'll try to stand still. I know. I don't have my leash doesn't attach to this very well. All right, collar, all right. Changes, Hartland residents versus call volume. So you saw Chief early on showed call volume of Hartland residents. It's an exponential call increase in the last decade, and it's a linear decline in our paid-on-call residents. Why does that matter? Our paid-on-call local residents provided the backfill that allowed us to get away with minimal staff at the station for decades. So when we would get a second call or we get a major call, we could count on people that lived in the area that would backfill. So if we only had 2 people at the station, didn't matter, I had 10, 20 people coming from home. That is no longer the case. Hartland is not unique to this. This is not a Hartland problem. Everywhere, I mean, you can just go Google it and you can look in the trade magazines, statewide, nationwide. This is a demographic problem. This is an industry shift. They're addressing it at the state level. All this, of course, was done before the revenue sharing discussions began. So I know that might change things. But the problems that we are facing at HFD are not unique to HFD. They're driven largely by the decline and steady linear decline in the number of residents we've had participating in the protection of their village. 72% drop in the last decade for Hartland residents that are on the fire department. Went back and pulled a roster from a decade ago, compared it to same time in 2022, and the numbers speak for themselves. It was in the 40s a decade ago, and in 2022, numbers 12. 12 people on this fire department who live in the village of Hartland. At the same time, you saw our call volume. Our call volume goes up 50%. So that stresses the very few people you have at the station even more. And we also see fewer employers than we saw a decade ago allowing their employees to leave during the day to come help us out. One thing I wanted, I do have to move. Yeah, could you actually do it for me? I'm a little bit too far away. With this, we saw this coming, or saw this trend. We weren't sure exactly when it was gonna get worse and worse. So you can hit it, go ahead, Chief. Drivers and trends, okay. Declining local residents, competitive pay. We are actually, in terms of full-time staffing, oh, sorry. That's all right. Go back one. Thank you. Competitive pay, we are getting creamed by our neighbors. in terms of holiday pay, in terms of full-time compensation. Part-time and paid on call, we're very competitive. Full-time and holiday, we are not. And that's a challenge that we're trying to overcome every day. The other thing is our people, we are trying to schedule, and I don't do the schedule, so these people who do the schedule are trying to keep our staff under the cap for Wisconsin retirement system. That's a challenge for us because we don't have enough people picking up the hours. So that results in people that might be less qualified or newer and aren't checked off like they should be, or can't do as many skills interventions, don't have dual certification in fire and EMS, working shifts when we don't have a lot of people coming from home. So it is at times forcing us to make difficult decisions between operational prudence and money. And that's a very difficult thing for us to swallow in terms of ensuring the response times and the staff that we need to mitigate incidents. The things I talked about have already been hit on the slide. You can go to the next one, please. Local residents. So this is what we talked about. These are just the graphs again. You guys have seen these before. They're in the memo that we sent out to you. 43 a decade ago, 12 today. Same time, call volume went from 762 to over 1,100 calls. Okay. And this, you guys have seen these before, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one. Go forward there, DC. Thank you. In terms of competitive pay scales, here are two of our closest neighbors that we work auto aid with. We have lost staff to both of these departments as they're taking jobs over there, and you can see the pay scale differences between Hartland, Lake Country right next door, and Western Lakes right next door. Go ahead. Nope, hit the forward button. Oh, there you go, sure. All right, here's probably, if you remember one slide from tonight and the things that I'm gonna talk about, Chief will have, a way of closing us out. If you have one thing that you remember from what we're gonna say, please remember this. The decline in local residents coupled with the increase in call volume has resulted in a skyrocketing number of calls that we do not have enough staff for. Mansfield, the one that Chief talked about, was at the optimal time. It was a 5:30 in the morning on a weekday call. People hadn't left for their regular jobs yet. We had a great, tremendous response from a lot of people. If that happens at noon, that's a different conversation. So this is the one to remember. Unfortunately, it's once per 7.1 days that HFD does not have enough people to respond to a call. In an instance 9 days ago, there was a possible drowning at Nixon Park. The ambulance that was coming, we had one person left at HFD. The ambulance that was coming from Lisbon. It's coming from north of the Culvers in Sussex. That's where their station's coming out of, for a call at Nixon Park. And if this was an anomaly or it happened once in a while, that's something that happens when you get the perfect storm. But the fact that it's happening once per week is something that we're asking for help addressing. And we're asking because we have that shared responsibility with you guys and to collaborate with you guys to help find a way to fix this. Oh, hold on, go back up. We skipped this one. This is one thing that I wanted to talk about when I said that we saw this coming and we've been planning for this on the vehicle side, which was a little bit easier for us to plan for. We've been reducing the size in terms of our fleet size. We've been reducing our vehicles. And if you haven't noticed it, it's because it looks like we got a bunch of vehicles in the past couple of years, which we did. But that was because previous replacement schedules weren't followed. Vehicles all kind of stacked up to be replaced at the same time. But the last two rigs, we did 2 for 1 with each one. So we took our big fleet size down from 6 to 4 in terms of heavy pieces of equipment, ladder trucks, fire engines that we have in the village. We did that because, number one, we cannot staff as many. And two, to go with that, we wanted to make sure that we could get the correct equipment to the scene to solve the problem with fewer vehicles because we couldn't have as many people driving and responding with as many vehicles as we did before. And additionally, it is saving the village long-term, because now instead of replacing 4 fire engines, you're replacing 2. Right? Sorry, 3 fire engines to 2. The heavy rescue has been eliminated, and we still have a ladder truck. So we went from 6 big vehicles to 4. So we were planning for a declining staff size and still wanted to maintain the operational prudence that we needed. There we go. So there's the graph, shows number of vehicles that we have. The total's gone down by, 33%, went from 6 to 4 for heavy pieces, which are the most expensive for us to purchase, maintain, operate, and replace. Go ahead, Chief. So, lastly, summing things up, you guys have seen this. This is the graph from earlier. Next one. Residents active, call volume, there we go. So here's the other one to remember. So once per 7 days, we're hoping that a delayed response and somewhere else coming to help a Hartland resident, we're hoping that doesn't matter. We want this, we're asking for you guys to help us solve this problem before it gets worse. We don't want to wait for this to get worse. It's been getting worse. And we don't want to wait for a bad outcome. So to this point, to our knowledge, this has not impacted a call disposition or how a call ended in a negative manner. Statistically, it's a matter of time before it does. My family lives here. You all live here. We have a shared responsibility to address this. We think this is something that we can work together on solving. Lastly, I want to say this, because this is a little bit unique for me to come up here and talk on this topic. So of all people, look, you guys know the decades of service that I, between my extended family have been, working on in the village in some capacity and helping our fire department. Of all the people that can stand before you, I'm not doing this as a career. Of all the people that can stand before you and suggest that we need staffing help, that I'm, probably have the least to gain by doing this. My family lives here. You guys all live here. We need some help. And I have no interest in replacing a viable professional workforce that was our paid-on-call group that lived around here with more expensive staffing. I have no interest in doing that. At the same time, we have a shared responsibility together, us, all of us, a shared responsibility to our residents to ensure that they're getting the help from us that they expect. So I thank you guys for your time. We're asking, our request from this is that we have some actionable steps. We've discussed having a meeting at HFD so you guys can understand our response model and kind of the weak points. I think there's gonna be some short-term things to be addressed that'll buy us time, and longer-term solutions that'll need even more money. We have lots of ideas, and I think a special meeting would be a good way of starting that discussion. So thank you for your time. I appreciate all you guys do for us. We appreciate the support that you guys have given us. That's it for me. Thank you, sir.
Chief?
Go.
Or both. You can figure out my mute button, then I'll ask. As presented, it sounds like things are getting dire, and obviously I met with you the other morning, so we talked to start talking about things. For the board, I just want to say on their behalf, and I can't speak for any one of them, maybe none of them are in this camp, and I think both of you know, and a lot of the people sitting here know that serve this village on the fire department know that this may be fresh to some members of the board, realistically true, whether it was blanketed, sugar-coated, whatever. 4 years ago, we would sit here and we were hearing reports of, we have more volunteers than anyone in the county. I'm only saying this because on behalf of the board also, I do believe this board and all of the staff in the village is here to address this problem. It sounds like it's a problem, is here to address the problem. But while some of, I just, out of respect for them, I'm just saying I do know that some of the people on the board, it is a quick shift, and hopefully you can understand that where it's hard for people to understand, like, how was it at 52? And it's not even a question, I just, out of respect for everybody, there's nothing, I don't believe, that the people on this board or in the department can solve by working together, staff, and not just this board, all the staff, everybody, there's a lot of moving parts to it. No question that the problem can be solved to figure it out. But whether it was sugar-coated or whatever, 4 years ago it was, hey, we have, this, that, and the other. So I just want to say that on behalf of the board, but I appreciate if things are getting dire. We don't want to be, I have nothing against them, even though I know I'm on YouTube. We don't want to be Menominee Falls. where all of a sudden they come forward, if no one knows that, there's a story where they all of a sudden came and they literally, if I'm not mistaken, had one working vehicle in the entire firehouse, and they couldn't even get that out the door. And all of a sudden it was a major catastrophe. We don't want to get there, and Hartland is not there. I'm only using that as an example because there was a disconnect between the department and the board, or whatever happened there. Something happened, but we don't want to get there. But I have no doubt in my mind that the people sitting here and the people on this staff in the village can
fix it.
anytime people are willing in this village, we can address and will address this problem.
To your point, I want to add one thing that you just said. I think we are doing better than most in the county with this staffing model. There are very few in the county, count them on one hand, that are doing this call volume with the amount of full-time staff that we're doing. It's unheard of. So we are doing very well with the model that we have, but the increase in volume is showing its weak points in our ability to staff multiple incidents, bigger incidents, especially during the day.
Yep, and,
So,
and
yes.
I do want to add, and I agree with you, and I do want to add, and this is on behalf of the fire department, and I mean, this village, this is not the people on this board. These are the first responders, the police department, everybody. Speaking of the major incident we have and other major incidences we've had in this village, I mean, I can think of so many stories just in the short time I've been on the board, 6 years, of people jumping into rivers to save people. And I mean, a lot of what you guys do is not a profession that most of us know about on a day in and day out. What you see is not something most of us know about. But when it comes to what this goes on in this village and how it's handled, all the communities around us had to go to their people and say, we don't have enough, pony up, because that's what it's going to take for you to maintain an 8 to 12 minute response time. I just want the residents to know, in case anybody's watching this meeting, I think it's fair, at this time, this is all to try to not get into that situation, but at this time, the village of Hartland is not at an 8 to 12. If I'm not mistaken, we are not in an 8 to 12 minute for any of our first responders, I don't think, on an average time. Would that be somewhat accurate?
First ambulance is out the door within 2 minutes.
And I'm saying this because if someone watches this meeting 2 weeks from now, I want them to know this is to not get into that situation so that we can have the foresight of continuing to provide the service we provide now, so that we aren't where someone has a child on their living room floor that's choking, that doesn't get assistance for 8 or 12 minutes. They get it in the 3 or 4 that we're at their front door in. I just wanted to say that in case, you know what I mean. I hope you understand why I'm saying it.
I have a question too, real quick. So the 7.1 calls that we miss, is that a first call we're missing?
No, it would be a second call or a third call, so.
However, it's also a combination, counted in that, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Counted in that was, for example, a car accident. Might get a daytime car accident where we do not get enough to staff an ambulance and an engine. It's insufficient staff to handle. In that case, we handled the ambulance part of the car accident, needed an engine response, and we didn't have enough people. So it's mostly second and third calls. But there are times, especially during the day, where we are struggling if you need 4 or 5 people for a first call in Hartland, we're struggling to put that out. Does that answer okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Clarification too, it's 7.1 days, right?
Every
Not
7.1
calls.
days, correct.
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 Once a week.
Once per week.
Once per week average.
Once per week.
Correct.
I do appreciate all the presenters too, and on behalf of the entire department.
All right, so in conclusion, we'd like to thank the village board, village staff, and the Hartland community for the continued support. We'd also like to invite anyone to stop in at the department and see what we're about. Most days the doors are open when it's warm out, but we've recently have a bird issue right now. We have a couple of sparrows that have sought to build a home inside the bay of the station, and so we keep the doors closed. This group of goofballs think it's the funniest thing ever that one got into my office and left me a present on my monitor screen. So thank you again. We look forward to working with you on our staffing issues very soon. Thank you.
Real quick, and I've stated to you, and this goes for all of you, my door is open to talk about budget, the finances of it. You know it's a challenge. The state shared revenue you mentioned, it's a short step. They were gonna do more, and they've cut that already, so Keep talking to your legislators.
Absolutely.
Chief, I have a question.
Yes.
I know that Trustee Hallquist will appreciate this. I'm quite certain that our DPW Director, Mr. Faulkner, will appreciate this, but I have to ask you the question. You're telling me this is a sparrow problem and not a chimney swift problem in the
Correct.
fire department?
Yeah, correct.
I had to, there was no way that I could.
You were gonna leave that
Well,
one alone, right?
I'm sorry. And you know who will appreciate it more than anyone, because she was the only one on the
Wanna
board,
die.
is Trustee Wallschlager. I am so sorry. That wasn't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Trustee Wallschlager, I am true, that was honestly an oversight. I knew I wasn't on, but we all know that, I do not like chimney swifts either. They can all go to different chimneys. At this time, as is customary with our meetings, when we get done with our agenda items.
You want to go through the next item?
Did you see what was on the screen? In my defense, the only thing on the screen was announcements. So I'm like, oh, okay, we're done. Sorry, we're not there yet.
Now we're done.
President Vanderstel?
Consideration of appointments to the Board of Review by Village President, Trustees Tom Trutchell, Trustee Tim Hallquist, and Village Manager Ryan Bailey, and Clerk Darlene Eigel to the Board of Review. That would take a motion for them to be on that, or any of us to be on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointments to the Board of Review as read by President Vanderstel.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the appointments to the Board of Review. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Did you abstain?
I abstain. I don't want to vote for myself.
You're supposed to abstain if you have financial obligation. You don't have any financial gain from this. Thank you, Trustee Hallquist. That motion carries. Now we'll move to our customary announcements, starting with our library director.
Yes, so we are now fully staffed at the library as of noon today. For the past, 4.5 months, we didn't have an adult services librarian. I've been doing both those roles since I became interim, so I'm very excited for that. Her name is Bridget. She's about to graduate from UWM with her master's in library science this following Sunday. We actually poached her from Oconomowoc, so if you have any friends over at the Oconomowoc Public Library, make sure to say thank you. In the last week, we also got $3,600 in grants to cover partial attendance for myself and another library member to attend the American Library Association conference in Chicago. It's kind of like the equivalent of the American Medical Association for doctors, and it's in Chicago, so we're excited about that. And we're going to use $2,500 of the other grant to revitalize our teen area. We're going to be painting the walls. We're going to be changing furniture. We're just trying to make it a more inviting space for teens to come in the library. So otherwise, we're doing a lot of summer reading prep. So
Awesome, thank you. Chief?
I talked enough, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Wow. Shot across the bow.
So I gave you an update a couple weeks ago that we're close on opening Centennial Playground equipment. That brand new equipment is up and running. Our utility project will be done in the next week and a half. And then the asphalt paving crew comes in for about 3 months. So you'll see barrels all over the place now. The main paving, well, what's that? Cottonwood's going to be a busy one for businesses going to the pig. We're also going to shut down Walnut Ridge. We're paving the whole loop down in the industrial park. Attached with that will be Richards and James Drive will get paved. And then after Labor Day, Nixon Park will shut down and we'll do the parking lot and the paths in Nixon Park.
Yeah, the children enjoyed the new playground at Centennial.
Good.
So just a few weeks out from summer, which is very exciting, we have T-ball launching the week after next. So we should see those kids out in the T-ball fields in a couple of weeks. Summer camp programs, gearing up. We have most of the weeks full with a wait list, and we are hopefully going to be able to bump that number up per staffing. So just making sure we have the right number of counselors for that. We are still hiring for counselors. Hometown celebration banners went up around town. The street banners up as of today, and you'll see some other banners up around town. We are moving full steam ahead with that event, and we do need volunteers. So if you are interested in volunteering for any of the spots for Friday night or Saturday night of Hometown Celebration, you can talk to me about that.
Thank you.
Some posters over here.
Oh yeah, please take a poster and post it everywhere you can.
Pharmacies, other places like that.
Yes, I would
Stop
guess.
signs. Kidding, chief, kidding.
Hometown pharmacy.
Chief?
Got a couple things. Our Citizens Academy is coming to an end this Wednesday. It's our 9-week program where we take citizens from around the Lake Country area through the different things that the police department does for the community. I had the pleasure of teaching with the Shaniqua chief last week for our firearms portion, and it was very well received. A lot of positive feedback, and again, their graduation will be this Wednesday. Our squad camera implementation program went fairly well. Everything's working great. We had one little hiccup on one of the squads where the cameras automatically kick on if they sense a crash. And the crash sensors, every time you shut the trunk, were continuing to go off on only one of our 5 units. So I don't know what happened there, but we were able to troubleshoot that, and I believe it's working perfect now. So we had to get through some of those little hiccups of implementing the program, but so far so good, and we've already used it for a couple OWIs as great evidence for us, and then we also used it for some use of force incidents where we helped out a neighboring jurisdiction, and our video compared to maybe some of the body cam video is night and day, just a better view of what actually happened. So that's good. We had a legislative meeting as our Waukesha County Chiefs Association, Police Chiefs Association last week. We got, every year we get together with all the Waukesha County legislatures, so all our state reps and state senators here in Waukesha County, and we talk about hot topic legislative issues. This year, obviously, number one, it was the day after the shared revenue bill came out, so we had a lot of discussion on what that's going to look like. My understanding is that bill's probably not going to go through as is. It sounds like there may be a governor veto in the works, so we'll see where that goes. But at least it definitely seems like a step in the right direction with their shared revenue that hasn't changed in decades, and then also tying that into some potential sales tax for a long-term strategy to keep that funded appropriately, or to some extent at least. Another major topic was emergency detentions and our mental health, and trying to look at some ways. Cindy Duco, our state representative here in Hartland, has definitely got an interest. I serve on a committee with our State Chiefs Association, and we're actually putting together some legislative rewrite of Chapter 51, which deals with our mental health and emergency detentions. And it sounds like she'll be a good partner for us to bring that to the state legislature. And then finally, medical marijuana is a big discussion because it sounds like we're going down that road here in Wisconsin. And what that typically means is it's just that slippery slope to go to full recreational use, which definitely has some pitfalls, and we can learn from a lot of our neighboring and other states throughout the country on what those pitfalls are. A lot of people look at the tax base, what that can bring, and it's really just a drop in a bucket with what actual revenues come in and what pitfalls it brings with it. And again, my saying to the legislature has always been, when's the last time you smoked your medicine? And if that truly is a medical issue, there's ways to do that medically to take care of anything like a pill or some type of other form that would be more medically appropriate than smoking it. Our building study timeline, our lead engineer, architect, had a medical emergency and kind of fell off the face of the earth for a little bit. Kind of got me a little nervous because I could not get a hold of him, but eventually did get a response back. He is back on his feet, but he was incapacitated for some period of time with this medical emergency. He's back into getting us to where we need to be, and I'm hoping to have something to the board probably early June is what we're looking at right now. So we're a good month and a half behind on where I had initially anticipated or was told from Zimmerman. And then finally, just wanted to congratulate Fire Chief Jambritz. He's the WCTC 2023 Fire Protection Student of the Year.
Awesome. Chief, do you want to speak?
No, but I'm turning it into my English class tomorrow to get credit for it.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Can I ask, can you give a clarification on one thing you said? When you're talking about going back to this, are you talking CBD or are you talking actual THC containing items? Like they have in,
No,
to be
actual
up-
marijuana.
Illinois and Michigan have them, but I wasn't aware they're in smokable form.
Yeah, so
They're like
this would be
edibles and-
actual marijuana. It would-
okay.
They're looking at it in a medical, not full recreational use right now. And again, if it truly is a medical thing, then there's ways to take that product where you're not smoking it, causing a lot of other medical issues potentially. So that's, if they approve a smokable medical marijuana, that enforcing marijuana basically just came to an end. How do I know if it's medical or not?
Yep.
It becomes very problematic if it's still in the true smokable form. And
You know,
plants.
I recently got rid of cable, so I'm not all up on the news. I know I should be, but I'll figure out a different way. But that's why I just wanted clarification because I didn't know exactly what.
So again, it's in the beginning talks, but I think that's something you'll see in this legislative session.
Okay. Trustee Hallquist.
I'd like to say thanks to the FD for helping out on the Bark River Bash. I volunteered over there, so I saw you guys under the bridge and helping out anybody that got stuck. But we had a great turnout. I think there was 40 kayaks going down, and it was a big turnout at the park itself. I was busy at the beer garden. They weren't prepared, so anyway, good turnout.
Awesome. Good.
I would like to say a couple things. First of all, to the fire department and your commitment of being here to represent your group. That is one of the best in the country, not just the county. Being a resident of Hartland for quite some time, we're very proud to have a firefighting force like we have and EMT force in the Hartland Village. This year, Pat Walker, 44 years as a volunteer. Great article in the Waukesha Freeman back in March. It was really cool to see. Had a fun emoji I had to send Pat when I saw that. And his incredible wife that allows him to do all that. So anyway, thank you.
Pat, also like to congratulate you. I do know you got on the year I was born onto the fire department. That's commendable. Thank you, Pat, for your service. 1978. Thank you, Pat, for your service. And that's 44 years in a month. No one's counting. Pat, I'm kidding. I do want to say, the village board, as we instituted, I believe 5 years ago, maybe it was 4 years ago, I don't know exactly. But we all go through, along with staff at the village level, every single year, even though after about 2 or 3 years, you'll have that training memorized. We go through the sexual harassment and no retaliation policy. That's all been delivered. Hartland PD delivered all of those to every one of their members of the village board so that they can put their jump drive in. They can read it. I asked the village board get it in ASAP, even for those of you that have it memorized.
Do you know you cannot make fun of somebody for their age?
I didn't. I wasn't. I was congratulating his long tenure. We weren't making fun of Dick Landwehr when we named the building after him. To see so many of you here from Hartland Fire Department, thank you so much for all of your service, for everything you do. Thank you. I wanted to touch on a couple things. First, I'm gonna hit on the staff stuff. I do wanna commend, even though, because these two organizations these two departments work together a lot. Hartland Police Department and Hartland Fire Department, even, while Chief was speaking, he said that, he was doing a 360 to check out a scene, and it was a horrific scene, that both departments, I think, had some people that really had Hartland Fire obviously had a lot of people that were really, I don't want to ever see what they saw. But point being, I think it's commendable the way the two departments work together. It is what makes us safe, and I think it's what makes Hartland great, is everybody working together to make this a better community, and in my opinion, the best community. And that's why a lot of us are here. But to hear you speaking, Chief, and be like, you're doing your 360, so when the troops are coming in, but to hear that there's a squad car there, getting people out, and everybody's doing their part. You got people getting people out, and a chief that's saying, okay, I got to be ready, because when these people come, when my staff comes, I want them getting right in and doing what I want to. It just shows how tight you guys work together, and I think I commend both of you, chiefs, for running such good organizations, and I really mean that. I mean, for emergency preparedness, that's fantastic. I just want to touch on, and I hesitate, I don't usually use announcements to do this, but I am, because I want to say it to the community. I want people to know that this is an announcement. When people do come and speak and say something to the village board does listen. It might not be me. It could be another trustee, and it's happened on many occasions. Recently, you heard, those of you that have been at the meetings, I know the department heads have heard it time and time again, but when we go to like the sign ordinance, the reason the sign ordinance came up wasn't because I decided just to change it or brought it up, but I did ask for it to be on the agenda because a resident had come and asked about the sign ordinance standing at the podium in public comments. And I said, let's look at it. Now, it's the best of my understanding, Chief and our village manager, Bailey, would know better than I, but it's my understanding that's probably gonna just go by the wayside, or maybe have 2 or 3 words changed. It just seems like it's a better way to go. They would know better than I. But we did send it to the attorney to have it looked at, because we do take it seriously. When someone brings something up that might not be in line with state law, or something that's wrong, whether it be crosswalks, whether it be signage. I know DPW, I know you're the same way. When someone comes up and speaks, if there's an issue, I know that you go and look at it. We might not hear about it again, but I know that our director, Dave Felkner, goes and looks at it. So that is a testament to, and I'm not leaving library out. I'm sure that if people say things there, you jump on them all. So they just usually don't bring them to this podium, but I mean, seriously, the way the village works together is great, but I really want to focus on, sorry, I'm not leaving rec out either. I'm so worried, I'm so scared to leave someone out now. But we do listen to people when they come up and speak, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call. Sometimes it doesn't even make it to the village. In fact, most times it doesn't make it to the village board, because by the time we have a village meeting, it's already handled and done. And that's the truth. All you department heads, I commend you for making sure those things happen. I really do. But also, anybody watching, because I know all of you already know this, anybody watching, we do listen. What do we got? Speaking of that, in listening, there was a break-in into cars. Chief of Police, you'll know better than I. Chief Misko. There was a break-in into quite a few cars, I think 6, maybe 4, behind Palmer's. This is, what, a year and a half ago? Guesstimate.
Yeah, October of 21, I believe.
Okay, so a while ago. But that's part of, we were trying to look into cameras. It was cost prohibitive. But Chief, at the last meeting or the meeting before, was bringing up things that he's looking into to find a way that we can get more cameras out, because he found now there's cheaper options coming up. And I know I'm all over the place, but I just want to stress to the community, especially after just some of the things I've heard in the last, say, 6 months, we do listen and we do act. And in this agenda, we were on the second reading of making an ordinance for relaxing the moratorium on registered sex offenders, but coming up with an actual lifetime ordinance, and that also came from people speaking at meetings. So I just want to stress, if anybody does not think that we're listening, whether it's yourselves or if you hear it, please tell them to contact the village. Because not only do we listen, but it was just delivered, we do not have a retaliation acceptance in this village. So if someone wants to retaliate against someone for coming and speaking their mind, they will be taken care of swiftly and justly and appropriately. And I think the village is clicking really well. We're just coming off of, I'm starting my 4th term here. We don't do a state of the village speech, but I'm going to tell you this village is strong. And I think it's strong because of the staff and the people that make it happen on a day in and day out. It's easy to come in here every 2 weeks and sit up here and be like, oh, hey, how's everybody doing? But the truth is there's people that come in starting at as early as 5:30 in the morning, and people that are on call 24 hours a day, as you guys know. It's a great village, and I know I picked a bad meeting to give such long announcements. I'm looking at the clock, so I'll stop, but I really do, seriously, I respect everything you do, and I thank you very, very much for everything you do to make this village great, because it is amazing, and it's only getting better. Anybody else have any announcements? Oh, yeah, and yeah, shoot, I followed up with that. Oh. The average assessment on the properties in Hartland, average assessments in the properties of Hartland went up by 31%, tiny bit more, but 31%. That does not mean that you're going to pay more in taxes necessarily. Our dollars in tax that we can get only can go up by our net new construction percentage. So if Hartland is worth 1.3 billion, 1.7 billion, and our net new construction is 2 million, our taxes can only go up by, not the full 2 million, but we can only get extra taxes out of that new $2 million of assessed value. Now, I'm not saying you're not gonna pay a lot more in insurance or something like that, because you're gonna wanna up your insurance. But this is part of the inflation. It's hitting us now on everything you're seeing in the entire economy. It's now gonna start hitting this. So people are getting letters, they were sent out today, that the assessment just says what your property is worth. This isn't on average. My home, the people on the lower end, I'll tell you right now, are gonna be the ones getting hit harder. So my home, or a home in just a regular, a $250,000, $300,000 home, is probably gonna go up anywhere between 30 to 50% in value, assessed value. A home in Bristol Cone, or someone that owns a property that's, $2 million, you're probably gonna be looking at anywhere between 8 and say 12 or 15%. Don't take those numbers as dead set. I'm just giving them as examples. But that doesn't mean the tax is going up. It just means the assessed value is going up, and that's due to inflation. And I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. This is coming from the 2020 and 2021 era. Nothing, the product didn't change, but when the dollar's worth less, you got to give more. That's what causes inflation. That's the best way I can say it. For anybody that doesn't, it is the way it is. When you pump $7 trillion into an economy and you just printed it, but didn't get something of value for it, then that means all the dollars are out there and they're all worth the same, all the money supply is worth the same, but if you put a bunch more dollars out there, now all those paper dollars are worth less. I don't know how to describe it better, but I want everybody to know that those letters will be coming. Feel free to call. Village Manager Bailey would love to describe to anybody that would like a full explanation on how that all works.
We posted something on Facebook, there's already confusion, so we get the same tax levy, so the village is not getting any more money. But what the whole purpose of this is for everyone to pay their fair share. So if you had a $200,000 house, you probably could go sell it for $275. If you want to sell it to me for $2, I'll take it. Because then you can sell it for $275. So it's everybody paying their fair share of the taxes. There's no additional money, but you're right. Some people on the lower end may have a larger increase. Some people on the higher end may have a decrease, even though they had an increase. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's confusing, but again, Village Manager Bailey would love to, he would be happy to talk to anybody about that. I'm done with announcements. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.